Hey guys, so for those of you that are still hanging in there, thank you. Life is busy, and I am going to be making more videos, and I will be addressing a lot of your concerns. I started my video off with this was not going to be popular because I knew it wasn't going to be popular. Eleni and I, we're not so silly that we know that this is going to be, oh, it's going to make us so popular, dude, let's do it. We know that this is not going to be a popular subject. So I need you to understand one thing. I'm aware of all the people that are talking bad about me, okay? I do understand that. I understand all of the back chats, the private messages, the WhatsApps, the Discords, all of that. I'm aware, okay? And people, when I draw my last breath, people will be able to say a lot of things about me that may or may not be true. But the one thing that someone will never be able to say in good conscience is that Courtney was a coward. So I want you to understand that I am fully aware that what I've took on is a subject of controversy. I understand that. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this for those who may not know. I'm doing this because there is a full-on attack of Christ, the New Testament, and everything surrounding Christ and his believers. I want you to understand that when I realized a few years ago, that more and more people were falling away. And there's really nothing I can do about that, okay? This is prophecy. The New Testament talks about this. But I would love to know that God has given me a platform to help as many as I can possibly help. Look, the Messiah couldn't even stop everyone from falling away. Do you think that I think I'm capable of doing? Absolutely not. I'm just a human. I've made mistakes. And I'm quite frankly a little upset with myself that I, in the beginning of my walk, fell prey to this. Trust me, bro. Everything's pagan. And I've since repented of that, like quite a numerous amount of times. And I will continue to say sorry because I think where right is right and wrong is wrong. We should do that. We should be humble enough to eat humble pie, eat the crow and say, we're really sorry. We'll do better next time. I've learned from this and I'm not going to continue to make these mistakes. So I'm aware that what I'm doing here is not popular. But it just has to be done, okay? These things have to be done. We have to admit when we're wrong. And I do this to protect those whom are believers in Jesus. I have seen on this app for quite some time. Actually, 2 years ago, I think it is, when I joined this app. I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was December. In December will be 2 years, maybe. And in the beginning, and I have receipts for all this. If anybody needs the receipts, I have the receipts showing that we believers... we're holding hands with people that are no longer believers in Jesus, that are no longer believers in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when they say everything's pagan. And I've done a video already showing two of those people, one being a rabbi, another being an atheist that was once messianic and things of that nature. So listen, I hate to be the one that says I told you so, but I kind of told you so. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And so here's what I want you to understand. A lot of people are taking the temple worship, the things that are due to temple worship, and broad brush painting it over everybody in exile, and they likewise in doing that become a Pharisee. Let's look. All right, here's the famous Deuteronomy 12. We are going to scroll down here. We're going to start really at a little above verse 30. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? And so this little verse is broad brush painted over Christmas as if Christians go, hey, psst, pagans, how do you celebrate your gods? Because we're going to do the same thing. So they're taking this and they're putting it on over here. Okay, let's go with this. Let's keep going. We will do the same. And then it says, you must not worship the Lord your God in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things the Lord hates. And what are some of these detestable things right here? It says very clearly that they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. See to do all that I command you. Do not add to it nor take away. Notice I finished with the add to it nor take away part. How many of you are adding to what the Lord here says by saying that Christians are not allowed to celebrate the date that they believe Christ was born on? It's not a feast. It's not a feast of the Lord. In fact, guys, let's be honest here. If you are celebrating Sukkot in an RV, guess what? The Lord doesn't say to use an RV. And you can say, well, that's a temporary dwelling. Well, wait a minute. Are you adding to the scriptures by saying it's a modern temporary dwelling when that's not what the Bible says? So if you're going to broad brush paint, you got to do it to yourself as well. So I'm all about equal weights and measures, holding that energy when you go over to speak to someone else, or when you criticize me, make sure you're criticizing yourself in the same way. Okay? I have no problem for anybody that's wondering. Celebrating Sukkot in an RV. Jews will have a problem with that, but I don't have a problem with that. Okay? So just know, my point is that you are giving yourself a pass when you're not giving them a pass. So what are some of these detestable things? So it's obviously burning your sons and daughters in the fire. Christians don't do that. And do not come at me being like, that's what they're doing when they're offering their kid to Santa to sit in his lap. Guys, vague associations. Now listen, I think the Santa part is a little weird. Something about a Santa that knows everything like God is a little weird. And my kids knew from a very early age, there is no Santa, okay? No Santa, not real. Based on a real character that did good things, but not real. That's the commercialization. And by the way, that is not a mandatory requirement of Christmas. Nothing in Christmas is mandatory requirement, but if you want to celebrate Christmas, there is a nativity. That's what it's based around, okay? So quit thinking it's all or nothing. It's not. Do away with the Christmas, the elf on the shelf. That's weird. I don't even know what that is the last 20 years. It doesn't make sense, but this is what humans do. They make it bigger, extravagant, but that doesn't mean that it's inherently pagan. Please understand that if you don't like parts of Christmas, don't do it. It doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean that you toss the whole holiday or celebrating the birth of Christ at all. Well, where does it say that we should? Okay, where does it say to use the internet? Where does it say that you can wear your wedding ring? Because that's totally pagan. I don't know if you know that. It is pagan. So check yourself right now. Look down. Are you wearing a wedding ring? Hold yourself to the same standard. I guess what I'm saying here, guys, is you're taking Deuteronomy 12, and in my Asherah videos, you will see every single one of those is about temple worship in the land. And I don't want to hear anybody being like, so I can do whatever I want outside of the land. That's not what I'm saying. But you notice the Lord is focusing on specific things. This is why he vomits them out. The land vomits them out. It's because it's about temple worship. You are taking temple worship that's due to the temple, in the temple, around the temple, on the holy ground, and prescribing it for the common folk. This is what the Pharisees did. They took the ritual washing, which by the way came from the priests, and then bound that to the people, trying to make the people as the priest. And I understand to a degree why they would want to do that. But you're binding something to the people that God never did. So if you don't want to celebrate Christ's birthday, don't. But don't create a law where there is none. There's no law. And for some reason, people think by default, if you celebrate Jesus's birthday, then that means you're worshiping God by doing that. No way. Sure, the Magi came to, quote, worship the Messiah. Well, we're told about that in Daniel 7. Now, you want to argue with me about that? We'll beef that out in a debate. Any of this in a debate, to be quite frank with you. But nonetheless, Felach or Pelach is 10 times in the Hebrew Bible, and it's every time it's ritual worship unto God. So in their way, that's what they were doing. But don't think that modern day Christians that are celebrating that the most important person has been born is somehow now worshiping God. There's no correlation there. You're making correlations where there are none, and you're binding burdens where there should be none. Do not go to someone else's house, flip tables, crack whips, and say you have a right to do that. Jesus himself didn't do that. He stayed in his Father's temple. Notice temple worship is very specific. Everything outside the temple is about typical moral law. And this is something my Torah friends, for some reason, cannot understand. But guys, great question, brother. And I could sit here and give you testimony. I could tell you how my channel was developed to defend Christianity, because very few Torah observant people defend Christianity where they need defending. I could sit here and I could walk you through the fact that people are literally holding hands with the devil behind the door, and they don't know that they're doing that. They have no clue that they're doing it. They're not doing it intentionally. They're trying to find truth. They think they have found truth. They grab on it and they squeeze so tight. Like Brother Matthew Jansen said, they hold on to what they think they know to be truth until their knuckles turn white. And inadvertently, they become an enemy of the gospel, an enemy of everything that is Christ, because they think they're doing what is right, good, and true. I could just tell you all that, or I could just show you. Goodbye to Christianity for good.
It's something like they were practicing things that you didn't find in the Bible. Was there something attractive that you saw about Messianism that got you?
So I started to evaluate a lot of what I was taught, and realizing that it's not in the Bible, or I'm having a hard time finding the doctrines. And I'm like, Jesus is Jewish. In fact, all of these people are Jewish. And so like that really intrigued me, and I wanted to learn, okay, well, what does it mean to be Jewish? And then, I found the Messianic movement, and and then you start to learn, like, I mean, we didn't celebrate Christmas because Christmas is pagan, so we kept Hanukkah. We didn't.
P.S. Hanukkah's on December 25th. Kislev. By the way, according to Torah observant Christians that are hating on the December date, why was Hanukkah chosen and kind of mandated, really, to be celebrated? Not in the same status as that of the Feast of God, but this is between the Testaments. This is between the Testaments, and yet we find that the Messiah, whether he celebrated or not, we do not know exactly, but we know in the book of John, he took it as an opportunity to come at the traditional time and say that he is the light of the world. What does that mean? No one really knows. I mean, we know what he means with regards to the resurrection, but maybe there's some sort of implication there that he's trying to get at. The point is this was a tradition. This is a tradition for which even the Talmud does not mention Judah the Maccabee, right? The Maccabees. It doesn't. Yet, for some reason, Christians are not allowed to have traditions, but Jews can have traditions. So here you see a now atheist proclaiming that everything in Christianity is pagan. So she goes into Messianism to where she thinks that's a better form. Fine, maybe it is, as long as you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but this is what she does. She throws the baby out with the bathwater.
We celebrate Easter, we observe Pesach, like we were doing, like it was very much Judaism, which makes sense in context to the Bible. I mean, I never once questioned the authenticity or the validity of the Bible. I didn't know anything about until how the Bible came to be constructed until after I had deconstructed. And so if you're just to take what the Bible is and says, this was the most consistent theology that but
yet is in what the Bible says. It never mentions in the Old Testament keeping Hanukkah, right? It never says that it's wrong to have traditions, but clearly she is okay with traditions at that time as long as they're Jewish traditions. Inevitably, she deconstructed so much out of her faith that she became an atheist. Then you have things like this. I'm pagan, and it's very much common knowledge in our community that modern Christian holidays are bastardized versions of our own. That said, I'm always interested in learning about others' beliefs and histories. Well, then you should know that prior to the pagans stealing the date of December 25th, there were no gods born on December 25th. So no, it's not common knowledge. What is common knowledge is things that are repeated. And what she means is, I have heard it repeated over and over again. There's an old saying that the lie is went all the way around the world before the truth even gets out of bed. So very much so, when you start to see people that are outright pagans saying that Christmas is pagan, and yet you can't find connections to it. It almost appears as if you're holding hands with the devil because he wants you to think it's pagan. So here, known counter-missionary who has a despising taste for Christianity, he goes on to explain keeping Christmas as a person who is like leaning towards Judaism is like celebrating an anniversary of your ex-lover.
Love letters between her and her ex-boyfriend. How would you feel? You feel horrible, I don't think is the word. It would injure your marriage. It would injure any marriage. Maybe your marriage could survive that? Possibly, I don't know. It would certainly be catastrophic.
Now, I want you to look at all these people that don't believe in Jesus or deconstructed. This person is clearly okay with celebrating Hanukkah, lighting the candles, for which, by the way, is a prayer which says God commanded it. God did not command it at all, just like Shabbos candles. Let's continue down. This person is a B'nai Noach, which means they've deconstructed out of their Christianity and went into Noahide nothingness. Notice, though, they're perfectly fine with gifts on Hanukkah. You do understand that gift giving during Hanukkah is a tradition. By the way, it's mostly an American tradition. Not a whole lot of Israelis do this, right? And if they do adopt the gift giving, they've copied it from Christmas, because at least Christmas has origins in gift giving with the Magi. At the very minimum, you can find the origins there. Okay, so here's a person, yet again, left the faith, denounced Christianity, denounced anything of Christ, and moved on to another form of tradition. All of these people whom are very ignorant, of course, they make mention of Jeremiah 10, even though if you go down to verse 14, it becomes absolutely clear what it's talking about. This person talks about after the flood, pagans celebrated the sun returning to Kislev 25, that's Hanukkah, by the way. So if you're going to hate on the December 25th date on the Gregorian calendar, I need you to hold that same energy when you're hating on the Kislev date of Hanukkah. Here you see this person giving Hanukkah a pass because it's related to the celebration of the temple. That's more problematic than celebrating the birth of the Messiah. I'll tell you why that's more problematic, okay? Here's what they're doing. They're essentially stating that the temple has been rededicated. There's nothing wrong with rededicating the temple. But to actually develop a celebration around the dedication or rededication of the temple could be far more problematic, since Deuteronomy specifically prohibits celebrations in the way that the pagans celebrated, i.e. maybe gift giving and things like that, because you can see that within the Greek time frame. Gift giving, and I'm going to show that source. Gift giving, and then correlate it to the temple, which is of God. Whereas Christmas is simply celebrating the birth of Christ, which nothing in the Bible prohibits. Here's those receipts. Not to say that gift giving in and of itself was not cultural all across the world, but if we're going to talk about it being in relation to the temple and the rededication, because that's what people do during Hanukkah, here's the receipts right here. Come, friend, give me something, for you seem to be no lowly man among the Greeks, but their most noble lord, indeed a chief. So you continue to read, and you'll see very clearly. Gift giving was prominent in all or most all cultures. But how do we know this wasn't stolen from the Greeks? So why do I fervently defend things of Christianity? Well, because you can see very clearly that people have allowed this subject of Christianity and Christmas to deconstruct them completely out of their faith, when there's no law against Christians celebrating the birth of Christ. None. And if you don't want to do it with all of its bells and whistles, then don't. But it is wrong to associate that with a sin for which there is none. You're creating a law for which there is no law. Secondary, we can see that Niddle, like December 25th, Jews are fine with the dates that Christians have supplied for the date of Christ, because they, Hasidic Jews, abstain from studying Torah during that time. So they're perfectly fine with the dates. Why is it that Christians in and of themselves are not fine with the dates when you can't find any links to pagan gods on that date?